Well, this video that I'm making now is because I hate to type. So I have the kind of an involved plan that I worked out for one of our clients. And I think it does well to share this with everybody that watches my channel, which is not that many people, but it does actually work out well. So I have a client that's like a lot of the investor clients that property managers have, and a lot of the people that I've helped mentor along the way and do better in real estate and other types of investment. Everybody wants to make more money. Everybody actually wants to at minimum break even, and then of course eventually maybe sell them and make a ton of cash, or maybe make positive cash flow all along. It just depends on the properties and a whole bunch of other things. Now, in this particular case, I did a study on these 5 properties they're owned by this particular client. Now, we're not going to divulge who the client is and where they're at or what they say in the movies. The names and the names and the places have been changed to protect the innocent. But in this case, it's the study that I've completed on this. The property owner, they want to charge more money for rent. I mean, everybody wants to charge as much money as you can for rent because you want to make as much as you can on the property that you just paid a gajillion dollars for a whole bunch of properties. And in this case, obviously, I want to be very candid, as I always am in all my videos. Hey, this is the way it's going to be, or this is the way it is, or this is the way I see it. I can't see it any other way, but the way I see it, I've been pretty successful in some things. When you turn around, you find out that you accidentally own 18 Range Rovers, you probably have made too much money. But the simple fact of the matter is, if you want to charge more money for rent, you have to give the tenants some reason to do that. Now, you can go up a little bit here, $20, $50 one way or the other. Or, you can usually do that and use the logic of, the income tax, property taxes are higher, insurance is higher, all these different things. And you can do that. The problem is where these buildings are, the people that live there or will move into there are, they're at the top of their budget. I mean, they just don't make a lot of money. So they're really at the top of their budget. That being said, I think that where they're at now for what they have, or for the way each one of these, there's 5 fourplexes. And for the way each one of these apartments is configured right now, they're probably at the top of what you can get. I mean, could you get $50 one way or the other? Probably. But you're not going to be able to add 150 or 250 or 200 or something like that dollars to the rent, because there's just too much competition right next door, right down the street, right around the corner that they can go to and get more for their money. Now, sure, these other places charge more money for rent, but like I said, they have more things. And if somebody is struggling to pay, and I'm just going to use these numbers, just throw them out there. Let's say somebody's struggling to pay, $750, $800 a month for rent, and you want to go up to, say, $1,000 a month for rent. That's a pretty good increase in rent. And they say, well, they're looking at things like, well, I was barely making it here. I could probably make that rent, but I could move down the street there, and they got central heat and air, or they got nice parking lot, or they got security lighting, or laundromat, or whatever the heck they may have, built-in washers and dryers in every apartment and things. So there's a lot of that around now. Anyway, so in analyzing each one of these 5 buildings, I originally thought about it, and they're all hangars. If you want to know what hangars are, I did some other videos on that, but they're all hangars. And so my first reaction was, if we're going to ask for more rent, we're going to have to turn them from hangars to centrals, right? And that is a big difference. I mean, obviously, it's a big difference in power bill. It's a big difference in its ability to heat and cool. It's a lot of big differences are between a hangar and a central. Centrals are much more valuable, and most things around these areas are going over to central. If they're not central right now, they're headed that way. The problem is that it ends up costing you anywhere from an inexpensive setup. Let's say if it's already vented, if it already has a unit inside that's bad, but the spacing inside is already there, the wiring's already there, the infrastructure for the central is already there. you've probably talking, and we've done some estimates. I mean, I actually got estimates, right? So they're anywhere from $2,500 to $3,000, but that's because they're putting in a complete new unit inside and outside. They're going to try to reuse the wiring, try to reuse the Freon cable, the Freon lines and things like that. And if they can do that and reuse the ductwork, you save some money there. But it's about $2,500 to $3,000 per unit. So if you're got, let's just say $2,500 a unit, that's $10,000 per building times 5 buildings. That's about $50,000. Now, if you put those in those units and you charge, you could probably go with Central in there. Some cases you might get $200 a month more because they're not terrible apartments. I mean, there's a lot of upkeep, there's a lot of maintenance on them that has to do with the structures of the apartments and the plumbing and some electrical things, and they're going to cost a fortune to keep going. But you could raise the rent by having something as dramatic change as having Central over the hangars. But that's a lot of money. I mean, if you were going to go in there, if you were just buying them and you knew going in that you were going to do that, and you took some of your investment capital or maybe pulled some equity or something and put them all into Centrals, it would be a way to go. But let's just say that you didn't, you think, oh, man, I don't want to spend $50,000, $60,000 on these buildings right now because my annual upkeep on these buildings is kind of high, and I don't know if I want to spend 60 grand on just this and then have upkeep downrange, eat my lunch again, and then it's going to take years to get by this. And you'd be right, it would take some years to get by it. But if you sold them, you could make the money back pretty quickly because they would be more valuable because it's already there, of course. So I began to look at it. Okay, is there a cheaper way to do this? Is there a way that we can actually get people to pay more money, especially the people that's already there? Now, a lot of these people that are there, they're on month to month anyway, so we can bring some more money in there. But again, we don't want to make them move and then have to get somebody else in there. We'd rather keep the people that are in there. So is there a way to do it without going with the Central over the hangars? I mean, I've talked to residents in all 5 buildings to kind of get take the temperature of what we're talking about doing. How much would they be willing to spend? My original thought was maybe they would just, if we put it in their unit, they'd be willing to spend $150 or $200 a month. The reality is that they would nearly save that in power bill. But again, these folks are just average people out there. You try to help them make sense of it, and their initial thought is, it's just costing me more. They're not thinking, yes, the rent's going to cost you more, but the electric's going to cost you less, so it's going to be a break even, but you'd have a Central versus hangars. So my thing is, I couldn't get a consensus to people that were willing to spend $200 or more. I mean, we already went up here recently. I've been preparing them to spend about $50 or more increase in rent just because the upkeep of the building has been getting more and more expensive. So we've been doing that. But I stumbled onto something. One of the tenants in one of the buildings, and talked to them about the air conditioner and charging more rent and stuff, their concern wasn't so much, and I got a couple more after this revelation came from this particular tenant. Their statement to me was, I can see paying more rent, but man, this place really looks bad. And I'm thinking, I've been in their apartment and it looks really nice. But then I stepped back and looked at the building and the property, and they're right. The place on the outside, it looks old. It looks run down. The paint's peeling off of not this particular building. This particular building's paint's just, blech, it's just old, and we've tried to do some things to spruce it up a little bit. The parking lot, this parking area that they have out in front of this particular building is not good. It's not designated or anything. It used to be nice, but then over time it's just gone by the wayside. And so I took that and I thought, they were actually talking about spending $100 to $150 a month more if we painted the building and fixed the parking lot and made the outside look better. And then it got me to thinking, I think there are some people that take, especially this particular person, because their apartment inside it looks really nice. And I think some people, they do want to go home to some place that looks good, that genuinely is attractive on the outside, and that they can look at this. And so I began to do a study and think, well, I wonder if we could spend some money on the outside of these buildings, because all 5 buildings are in desperate need of work. I mean, on the outside of the building, the inside of the building, each an apartment. Inside are decent inside apartments, but outside they look terrible. They look old. They look terrible. So I started looking at some of the apartments in the area that are generally the same kind of apartments, especially this one apartment building that we manage. There's an identical unit right behind it. I mean, it's looks like it's a carbon copy of it. In fact, it probably was built at the same time. But the other one is they've done some landscaping. They've painted the place. They actually have a paved parking lot out there that they had to have put in because those didn't just come with that. But I started looking at that and I thought, well, I wonder what we could do on each one of these buildings to make the outside of the building look more appealing so that, well, one, the tenants that are there, and they've got window units. They got hangars right now, and the hangars are doing the job of keeping them cool in the summertime, which is what we're into. And I guess they're okay with the plug-in heat as long as the outside of the building looked good. They were going to be willing to pay more money. So I thought, I wonder if we took each one of these 5 buildings and did a makeover on the outside of the building so it would look better. And how can we do that in the most constructive, effective, and least costly way to do it? At every building, all 5 of the buildings, you got to paint them. You got to paint the outside of all 5 buildings. If you paint the outside of all 5 buildings, and honestly, I just paint them all the same. I paint them all white with a black trim. That's kind of the hottest thing now. Is they just built some brand new apartments out there off in the southern part of Jacksonville. They're like the hottest thing around, and they're painted this white with black trim and stuff. And that's kind of the classic thing. Heck, we even painted our office white with black trim. We had them come out and paint it with that because that's kind of the trend now. So if you took these buildings, and a lot of it's already trimmed out in black, like last year, we just had them redo all of the stairwells and stuff, the handrails, and they redid all that black. So you wouldn't have to do all that. You do the eaves and window around the windows and different things. But if you did that, and then you go into the parking lot of the parking and you clean up, there's one of these properties. Again, we're not going into names, but there's at least, let's see, there's the 4 one, there's the S one, and there's the 2 one, and even really the U one, but the 4 one, the 2 one, and the S one would 100% in desperate need of some parking, of the parking lot being able to be redone, especially the S one. The S one has basically it was kind of a dirt driveway, I guess, or a rock at one time, but the dirt's been washed out by rain, and it's got these big caveats that last year we went in there and had them use the just take what was there and use this grade tractor with a grading thing on the back of it. And they graded it, and it really looked good. It's kind of smoothed it all out, but it went away because they didn't bring any product in, so there was no rocks or anything on there. It just went away. But it made a big difference. Those people that lived there when we had that done, and that was kind of in response to some of the stuff that had been coming from the city at the time. But when we got that done, the people that lived there were like, "Man, that's so much better." My car it's almost submerged in that one towards the end, and there was like a big cliff thing at the end before it went up on the road. Bottom of my car hit here and all this kind of stuff, and it doesn't anymore. But we need to go in there and put some aggregate down on that one, right? Put some aggregate in those holes, like a road base or something in there, rocks or something, and then grade it again so that it was real nice, and then put some parking stops up in the front of it, because the guy that did the drive, I had him actually build a little berm because people were pulling up. They were pulling up into the grassed area so they could park next to their apartments and stuff. And I'd go over there and wail on them. And I even threatened to fine them and everything else to keep them out of there. But, it'd be, well, that's my brother so-and-so and yada, yada, yada. So I was going to put some poles in, and I was over there talking to the guy while he was doing it. He said, I can push a berm up. And, man, he pushed that berm up there, and nobody drives in that yard anymore. And it kind of created a parking stop. So if we go in and put like an official parking stop, we need to put some some poles up where the stairs are, so that people won't try to drive between the stairs and this berm thing. Kind of put some poles in there. Really, and then rock the property, paint the outside of the building, really spoof that place up. There's some people that have lived there for quite a long time, and I can go to them. Yeah, I can get $50 a month. Just say, listen, cost went up. It's $50 a month, but I want to go up $150 a month. I want to go $150 a month. If we go up $150 a month and we don't spend the $4,000, $3,000 a unit to do it, but we spend maybe $2,000 a unit, a building, for the whole building, a couple of $1,000s or so. I had some pricing on painting the outside of the buildings. There's lots of different ways they can do it and stuff. And like the one on the 2 one, it has to be pressure washed really good. And there's some paint just flaking off real bad. I mean, it's got big spots on it where paint's flaking off. And that's got to be taken off before it can be painted. So that one's going to get a little pricey on it. But on average, it's about $2,000 a building to paint them. They're also 2 stories, so they've got to go up there, and it gets a little expensive because of that. But you spend about $2,000 painting it, another say $1,000 to spruce up these parking lots. S may cost a little bit more because they got to bring in some material. So you spend about $3,000, $3,500 a building instead of a unit. But then you say, okay, Mr. Tenant that's been there, and you're on month to month now, we're going to go up. We're going to go up in 30 days. We're going to go up to $50 extra. And then 30 days from that, we're going to go to $100 extra. And then 30 days from that, we're going to put you on a 1 year on a year lease that's going to be $150 extra from what you're paying now. And we let them build into it and get nice feelings from the building and stuff. And so what I'm proposing is that we do just that we spend, somewhere around $3,000, maybe $3,500 a building. Could be a little bit less on some, a little bit more on the others, but we probably average that. A little bit more on S, a little bit less on W, because on W there's not like a sign of parking, it's street parking. But that's the building that's screaming paint me. It's just dirty and nasty. Oh, and one other thing we started doing too. We recently turned a couple of units in the W and in the 4, and one before that. And what we've started doing is we're painting the front doors black, which is a real help, because the tenants, they tend to get dirt all around the door handles. They're coming home from work or whatever, and the dirty hands get all of these white doors. You paint them doors black, they look great. From the street, they look fantastic. Inside and out black. So on the inside, their dirty hands don't get on the inside. So we're painting the doors in the door case, like the door framing around it, black, so it doesn't get all like this. I'd like to paint all the walls inside black too, because they get them all dirty. But nevertheless, so the idea here is to take each building case by case as to what it needs, but spruce up the outside. Probably spend around $3,000 to $3,500, because it's the building's the big expense. Painting those big 2-story apartment buildings, it gets a bit expensive. And the reason for that is you just can't go down there and hire any jackleg to do it. If you go out and hire some jackleg who's not insured, and he climbs up that's a ladder. He climbs up there with his little paint bucket and little brush to paint the eaves, and whoop, slips and falls and hurts himself. He doesn't have any insurance, doesn't have any workman's compensation, nothing. And I'm telling you now, Jacksonville is home to a lawyer that is the richest personal injury lawyer in the United States of America. Is from right here, lives in Ponte Vedra Beach. And I'm not even going to mention his name because I might give him a free commercial. So he will just as soon sue you as look at you. And if you hire a person to come in and work on your property and they don't have the right insurance and they get hurt while on your property, even if you've contacted them, even if you've made a deal with them to do it, you're going to get sued. You're going to end up suing. And you know what your insurance company's going to do? Because you didn't vet them, you didn't make sure they had insurance, you didn't make sure they had the proper credentials, they're going to settle. And so your $1 million liability policy that you have on your commercial property is gone to some guy named whatever his name is. And why? Because you cheapened out and said, I want to go hire the cheapest guy. He said for $8 and $8 a donut and a can of paint, he'll get it done. And then next thing you know, guy falls, breaks his leg. He's buying a new car, a new home on you. So we need to use somebody reputable, which I've gotten some estimates from folks. And my guys that do a lot of work for us are going to come through on us, because I talked to Brian over there, and Brian said, yeah, well, we can cut some costs. And he said, I can probably get the paint cheaper because his brother-in-law works for Sherwin-Williams or something like that. And so again, I just feel like that if we go out there and we paint these buildings, we make them look really nice, we do a little bit of landscaping around the outside, we fix the parking lots up, so we give them dedicated parking. We put the parking stops up, we rock the parking lots that need to be rocked, and then we segregate that from the yard areas so that nobody's driving across the yard areas, but it makes it look really professional outside. And the number two one, the building right behind it, the identical twin, yes, it has central, but it's also really nice looking outside. I think we can get away without having the central as long as we give them some reason to spend the money. And if it looks really good on the outside, I think they'll spend the money. Anyway, I hope this helps some people out there if they were thinking about what I was thinking about and trying to help this person. And then the particular person, let me know what you think. Thanks for watching.